This is the bike that I just attempted to use for the 4,000 kilometer VIA race. I say attempted because unfortunately I had to scratch after 2,000 kilometers just before halfway due to some saddle related sit bone injuries / pain / saddle sores. So this is the bike as it was when I started, a little bit dirtier, apart from the saddle, which I changed in a desperate attempt to sort the problem at about 1,500 kilometers into the race. So obviously, even though I didn't finish this event, I think there's still value in me reviewing my setup from the point of view of learning some lessons from what not to do for next time. Starting with the frame, it is a Gen 6, I think, Trek Madone frame that I've taken all the paint off it. Reasons for that: I wanted something that looked a little bit different. I wanted something that looked like my bike, that didn't look like anyone else's bike, and I think it just looks a little bit cooler. And it saves a little bit of weight. Although, on a bike that's this heavy, a few hundred grams doesn't really matter that much, and that's not why I did it. But I got it done by a media blasting place that's local to me, and they did a lovely job. I raced it for a few weeks with nothing on the paint job, literally just bare carbon, for this race because I knew it was going to be really sunny. I covered it in a UV protectant that they use on, it's like 303, kind of like a wax spray, so the sun wasn't going to degrade all the resin in it. So, should be protected for a while now. We have released our first t-shirt. It is this very nice white embroidered logo t-shirt that I'm wearing at the moment, which I've already gotten muddy and dirty. But if you'd like to pick up one yourself, they are available on our website, the first link in the description. I really like the frame. I use it for the ultra stuff because it's the bike that I ride the most, but I don't think I'm going to ride it for any ultras in the future. I think it's just slightly too aggressive. I got away with it last year at a few ultras, but this year it kind of bit me with just how aggressive it was, just how aggressive the position is, and just how stiff the frame is. As soon as I had some sort of bike fit problem with my saddle, it wasn't going away with a bike that's this stiff and this aggressive. So I'll probably go with something that's slightly slower but slightly more comfortable for future events. So that's mistake number one. So it's 54 centimeter, pretty small frame. I change out to 38 centimeter round bars when I do ultras. It's a 110 minus 12 specialized Venge stem on there. So really aggressive, but it's got the TT bars on there, the TT extensions. That's mostly just to rest your hands. You don't want to have all your weight on your hands for 2 weeks of racing. I've got a log. My ankles were hurting. I really like thin bars. I really like to get my hand around the bars with my little baby hands. So when I race, I don't normally use bar tape, but for this kind of stuff, you know, when it gets wet, it gets a little bit sketchy, and it's not very nice to use no bar tape on aluminium bars, which is what's on here at the moment. I use aluminium bars because I think I'll crash on ultras quite a lot. And when you crash, carbon bars are normally the first thing that go. So if you've got aluminium, you can crash and still continue, basically. So my compromise between not using proper bar tape but not being able to use no bar tape is I've got some old school kind of vintage cotton tape on there, basically just for grip. There's no comfort there. And yeah, that's pretty good. I think I'm going to race on that for this year as well. But yeah, it's just very aggressive, those handlebars. Wheels, just the stock Bontrager wheels. Nothing fancy about these. They're rebuilt last year before Transcontinental, and they're still dead straight, bomb-proof. Really happy with these wheels. I replaced the bearings just before this as well, so they were rolling really nicely with Seabear, a new sponsor for VIA. Got the sticker there, a little bit grubby, but Seabear moves on to the bottom bracket. Got a Seabear brand new bottom bracket in there before this. That was perfect as well, no problems with that. The group set, I've got Wheel Tops test group set. They gave it to me to review, so there's a full video coming out on the Wheel Top group set from China, coming out in the next week or so. Wireless 1x. Didn't have any problems with the group set, just kind of worked really, which is what you want. The shifters are nice and small, but I'll talk more in depth about that in the other video, about the group set. Gearing, I've got a 38 tooth 1x on the front with a 1033 cassette. Now on the climbs, perfect. Even when they got really steep, it was just enough. Really comfortable on the rolling terrain. But on the long descents in the Pyrenees, where it's not really that steep, you're kind of rolling at about 30 miles an hour, I spun out really easily, which wouldn't have been that much of a problem, but I was riding with a pair, with Matt as my pair, that had a standard 2x setup with a 50-11 biggest gear, so he could ride off pretty easily, whereas I spun out and had to roll down at my own pace. So in hindsight, I would have gone with a 2x setup, but it's not the end of the world, and I'm pretty happy with using it for future ultras. I'd rather go the 1x if possible, just because it's less to go wrong, there's less to break, you haven't got a front mech, and again it's a little bit lighter, less to charge, or if it's cabled, one less cable to break. I've got the Asioma road pedals, another mistake, probably would have gone SPD mountain bike pedals, even though it was all on road and there wasn't going to be any walking about. My road shoes are just very, very stiff and a little bit narrow, I found out, so I was getting a little bit of numbness in the middle of my foot. Again, it probably wasn't going to cause me to scratch, that issue, but just a little bit of comfort that I could have done without. The brakes, really, really happy with the wheel top brakes. They're massive calipers, kind of the alpine descents that are like an hour long on a fully loaded bikepacking bike is kind of the ultimate test, and they were perfect, nothing wrong with them, really good modulation, everything you want out of a decent disc brake. And there's two 160 rotors as well, so I like having two big rotors just so stuff wears out a little bit slower. Of course, got the full bean sticker with a Snorlax sticker on the top tube, because Matt said I could sleep anywhere, so he stuck that on there as my ultra cycling superpower. And there's a Madcap sticker, the guys that tracked us. I've got a 25mm that blows up to about 27mm on the front, and then a 28 that blows up to about 30mm on the back. So decently wide tyres. I wouldn't really say it was a mistake, but I'd probably choose to have wider tyres. I just didn't want to buy new tyres at the start of this, but I didn't have any problems with them. Didn't have a single puncture. They're just GP5000s. I think they're odd GP5000s from different years that I just had in a parts bin. Both brand new though. Light setup, I think I've really nailed my light setup over a few different events and riding. I've got two Moon Comet lights, and these both last about 20 hours each, so about 15 hours each on a flashing mode, so that's easily through one night, even in the winter, and then a little bit more, so you kind of have 2 days, one each, rolling, and then through the day you can charge them and take like half an hour to charge, and the batteries are tiny. And they've been really reliable for me over the last few years. And then on the front, I don't really like having the massive floodlights on the front, so I've just got one exposure Sirius on the front, and then I have a backup that I'll swap out. And again, they last just longer than a full night riding, kind of 2 days, charge one in the day. Again, they take like an hour to charge, and the batteries are tiny, so it's not a massive drain on anything, and I'd be happy using that light setup for every event in the future, really. I've got one of the new Wahoo Roams at the top, which is my main computer, and then I brought a spare Wahoo Roam. I don't think it's ever going to break, but if it does break, you're stuffed really. You need your GPS to ride, so just having a backup. They don't weigh that much, it doesn't take up that much space. I've already got them mounted on the bike, so I may as well bring a spare. So I need to do a little bit of personal investigation about what caused my saddle pain, but I think it was because I used a slightly different Physique Antares saddle than I normally use, not the carbon fibre one. And maybe over 2000k that causes a little bit of issue. But the one that I finished on is this Pro Stealth short nose, a little bit wide with a slit out the middle saddle. I've ridden it a little bit since I've gotten back, and it feels pretty good to be honest, but I think it's a little bit too wide for me, so I'm probably going to take that off, go back with the carbon Antares. Hopefully that was what caused the issue, and going back to the carbon version is fine, and then selling that, because I'm not gonna use it. That's pretty much the bike. Moving on to what I had on the bike. So obviously I've got kind of a 3-bag setup. I've got bar bag, a Rafa bar bag, Bontrager frame bag, and this really cool Apidura race saddle pack. I think this is the middle one, which is 5 litres, but the small one's 3 and the big one's 7. So and then I've got a down jacket here that I attach on the outside. So my packing strategy is that the stuff that I'm going to use the most is the easiest to get to. So I've got in the frame bag that I can just access whilst I'm riding really easily, I've got the battery packs, so I can charge my Wahoo, I can charge my phone whilst riding. I've got all the cables on this side and the battery packs on the left hand side. I've got the tubes, like spare tubes, and a few spares at the back, so that when I get a puncture, again, it's really easy to access, and I can get it over and done with quite quickly. The bar bag, just the way I've got my bar set up, it's really hard to access. I have to kind of stop to get the zip open. So I've got stuff in there that I'll need, but I won't need whilst I'm riding. Kind of toothbrush, toothpaste, sun cream, a few different spares, but it's kept fairly light. I don't really like weight on the handlebars as well. So it's stuff that I'll need, but I don't really need to access it quite as often as the other stuff. And then I've got like bank cards and passport in the front zip pocket as well. It has its own compartment, so I don't lose it. I always know where it is. Saddlebag, I had the down jacket attached on the outside. It takes up a lot of space, but it's not very heavy. So if I just taped it to the outside, I use it for a pillow when I stop for a nap on a park bench. So I can just rip it off, stick it behind my head, and then rip back on again in a few seconds. And that's really, really convenient. I only actually wore this for maybe half an hour over the 2,000 kilometres. I thought it was going to be a little bit colder in the mountains, so it's a bit of a backup. And then this is full of clothing. It's full of nice sportful clothing, with the stuff that I was going to access first on the outside, and then the stuff that I didn't really think I was going to need but took anyway as an emergency right at the end. Like overshoes, it wasn't anywhere close to needing overshoes, but it was nice that I had them. Thermal base layer, again, nowhere near needing a thermal base layer. And then I had a long sleeve jacket and a packable jacket right on the outside. So if it suddenly started raining, or if the temperature suddenly dropped, you can easily whip it out, stuff some black stuff back in there and get on with it. Got a nice Pikachu badge on there that Matt put on the bike as well at the start. Didn't serve to be a great good luck charm apparently, with me DNFing. Despite me shaving my head, I still overheated on the first day. I also had a backpack, one of the best backpacks that I've had on this channel a few times. And in there I just had, again, really easy to access clothes, some Styrker carb mix and gels in the back, some emergency caffeine gels, and then on like the vest chest pockets, I can't remember what I had actually. I don't really think I had anything. Maybe if I stopped for food, that's where I put the food. I had the reflective tape on there as per the VIA rulebook on the front and here, and I've got reflective tape on the pedals as well. Overall, happy with the setup. I think the setup is really, really fast for ultras, just pure speed, but it does raise it can raise a few problems, and when I did have something go slightly wrong, this bike didn't help, it made it worse basically. So yeah, for future, definitely a few things I'd change. I'd probably go with my TCX, which has a slightly bigger frame so I can fit bigger bottles, slightly more compliant, a little bit comfier, bars are a little bit taller, but that's what it's all about. Live and learn.